Hello and welcome back to Afterglow episode 71, where this time we're going to be taking a look at Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo, which was actually my first experience with Kirby. I had not played the Game Boy or the NES games, so this one was my first experience. And it was a really, really good experience, although I didn't play a lot of Kirby games after this one, although I did go back and play the NES and Game Boy ones. And I really enjoyed this one. Quick update, if I do sound a little different, I upgraded my microphone yet again. Last year I had gotten the Razer Siren to upgrade the show with, and now I've gotten another upgrade. This is an Elgato Wave 3. Hopefully I sound a little bit better on this one. And I do plan on getting a pop filter for it as well to hopefully try to improve the audio quality just a hair bit more, but I hope this helps. Anyway, enough of my ramblings of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Let's take a listen to some music from Kirby. And welcome back. So, like I said in the intro, my first experience with any Kirby game was indeed on the Super Nintendo. I completely spaced the Game Boy one just because I didn't have a lot of Game Boy games or experience with it, and I spaced the NES one. For that one, I couldn't really tell you why. I just don't remember seeing it in the rental store, and even if I did see it, maybe it looked a little bit too kiddie for my tastes in a way, so I kind of skipped past it. But I remember Nintendo Power covering this huge Kirby game coming out that had like multiple games in one, and that's what really caught my eye, because I remember the Mario All-Stars collection, really enjoying it just for the variety of games in it. Like, maybe this would be up my alley. So I ended up giving it a rental. But before I rented it, I do remember the commercial for it too. The commercial was really, really different, but this is in the era where Nintendo was trying to do their gross out thing in Nintendo Power, and that bled over to the commercials a little bit. So kick back with me and let's listen to the commercial.
Seen a rash of these lately. TMK.
TMK.
Too much Kirby.
Think you can't get too much of a good thing? Try new Kirby Superstar. It's full-blown Kirby, inflated with 8 Kirby games, bloated with 23 Kirby enemies, bulging with new Kirby powers.
Get him into observation.
New Kirby Superstar, only on SNES. Can your system handle it?
So, of course, with this being an audio podcast, you can't see the commercial, although you can go to YouTube and look it up if you want to. But these kids are, like, huge and swelled up. If you have ever watched the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, you remember the kid that balloons up real big? All these kids are like that. So, and there's this nurse in there that's taking the needle and popping them. It's really weird and kind of disturbing in a way. It didn't really attract me to the game as much as the Nintendo Power article did. So anyway, I rent this game, right? And not all the games are unlocked at first, but I went through it and I played Spring Breeze, which is apparently a remake of the original NES game, which is kind of cool. But played it and really liked it, and I believe that unlocked a few games later on. The next one I played was Dynablade, which played a lot like Spring Breeze in my opinion. It was still a fun romp. I really like the ability of Kirby being able to suck in certain enemies to gain their powers, and I really enjoyed the fact that you can take that same ability and turn it into a second player for you. And those first 2 games I had a blast with. The next one, not so much. The next game was Gourmet Race, and that was one where you race King DDD, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and you're trying to collect as much food as you can while you're racing this king. And I don't know, I wasn't really feeling this one quite as much as the first 2. That being said, the first 2, in my opinion, were worth it alone, and those, to me, would almost make a complete game. Gourmet Race was just that kind of meh for me. After that, you get the Great Cave Offensive. Now, this was more my style. This is kind of like a Metroidvania game in a way, where you have to explore this cave and you have to hunt for treasure in it. I struggled to collect all of them. There's 60 treasures in there that you can collect. I never actually get them all. I think I usually end up with 40 some odd. And there's some fun boss encounters along the way in this one. And I really, really enjoyed it. And what's really cool is that the treasures, some of them reference other Nintendo properties, which was kind of neat. I remember like Mr. Saturn from Earthbound being in there. And that was such a cool shout out because Earthbound doesn't get enough love. And it was nice to see that little reference in this game. But after the Great Cave Offensive, you had the Revenge of Meta Knight, and this one played more like Spring Breeze and Dynablade. However, this one was a bit more difficult than those first 2 games. Like, by this time, you really, really needed to know the game mechanics. But I loved the character of Meta Knight. He was such a cool character. I wanted to play as Meta Knight. And of course, I finally got to achieve that in Smash Brothers many years later. But I thought it would have been cool to play as Meta Knight in this game. Sadly, I don't believe you can do so. This one is a little different from the first 2 because they put in time limits in this game. That being said, I really, really enjoyed it. After that, you have Milky Way Wishes. This is the biggest game in this collection, in my opinion, and also the most difficult. But again, it does play similarly to the other main games I had mentioned, but he can't use the copy abilities. Instead, he collects these items that allow you to select a copy ability from a list and keep it permanently, which is kind of a cool touch. I almost wish they would have kept the other way of getting your copy abilities, but that being said, it was nice to have something a little different to mix things up. There was also the arena, which I wouldn't count as a full game. They kind of do in this one to get their game count, but I wouldn't really include it. It's just a boss attack where you go through the bosses in the game. You only get 1 life, but you get a selection of power-ups at the start. It is kind of cool to go through and refight the bosses in the games, but I really don't consider it a game on its own. It's kind of a bonus. Then there's the sub-games. Okay. Not gonna lie, I spent way too much time with these sub-games. In some cases, I've probably spent more time with the sub-games than I have with the full games. And they're mostly timing games. The first one's Samurai Kirby, where you more or less are waiting for a go. And whenever you get that go, you have to hit the button as fast as you can, but you can't hit it before. You gotta do it faster than the computer does it. It kind of reminds me of Wild Gunman on the NES in a way. Except it's just hitting a button instead of using a zapper. It can be fun. And then Megaton Punch. Way too much time spent in Megaton Punch. It's also based on timing, but you've got 3 meters that you have to time perfectly. If I remember right, the first one is just a basic meter. It goes up and down. You're trying to time it to where it's at its fullest. There's another one that's like a pendulum that goes left and right. You gotta time it whenever the pendulum's in the center. And then the other one is like a target that kind of sways around a little bit, and you're trying to get the target dead center as well. Kind of like the pendulum, but it moves different. And the closer you are to maximum into the middle, the more damage that you do to this star that you're punching. And if you score better than the computer, you win. Really simple, but dear God, it was a blast. Really, really enjoyed it. Never did get the chance, unfortunately, to purchase this game, though. I did go back and emulate it whenever I was emulating stuff and replayed a lot of it. And again, had a blast with it. And it's really, really fun. Whenever I started collecting games, I did grab a copy for the collection. And I believe I also got whenever the game was re-released on the Nintendo DS. I think it was slightly enhanced on the DS. Not a whole lot, though. It was still basically the same game. And I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. I also got it again whenever it was out on the Wii. It was one of the few Wii re-releases I got. I got just the ones that caught my eye, and this is definitely one of them, so I had to pick it up. And of course, I did end up replaying it again whenever it came out on the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. I was really glad to see this game on there just because it's a great collection. So, of course, I replayed it again on there. So, if for some reason you have not played a Kirby game, to me, this is a perfect starting point. It's not dirt easy like the NES and Game Boy games are. It starts out easy, but ramps up real quick. But it doesn't feel quite as kiddie as the later Kirby games in the franchise do. Like, to me, this is like the perfect one. Not only the perfect starting point, but almost the perfect stopping point as well, because like it's my favorite, but it's also the easiest to get into, in my opinion. And then if you like really start getting into the franchise, then maybe check out the other stuff. But you don't want to. This is an easy pick it up, play it, enjoy it for what it is, in my opinion. Had an absolute blast with it. But that'll be it for my commentary in this episode. We will cue up some more music before we roll out the outro. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to another episode of Afterglow. If you'd like more, you can feel free to join our Discord and the show notes, where there's a few of us in there that chat somewhat. I would love to get some more people in there, get some more conversation going. You can also support the show at the Patreon link below if you'd like to donate $1 a month to get a shout out at the end of every episode. Be sure to check out friends of the show while you're checking out other podcasts like Retro Gaming Roundup, Secret Levels, and the Lost and Gone podcast. As far as Afterglow, our show logo and artwork is done by TobyVonDoom from Secret Levels. The intro and outro is done by Grim from the Lost and Gone podcast. Thank you once again for taking time to listen, and if you want to go into the comments for this episode, I'd be interested in hearing what's your favorite Kirby power-up. My most memorable, of course, is this one right here.